The morning always came too slowly in our neighborhood. Quiet streets, cold air, and the long wait for the school bus. I was 9 years old enough to wait alone, too young to understand what almost happened. Every weekday, my routine was the same. Wake up, eat cereal, grab my backpack, stand at the end of the driveway, and wait. The bus usually came at 7:12, always yellow, always loud, always full of half-asleep kids, always safe. Until that morning. It was colder than usual, the kind of cold that makes the air feel thin. My breath floated in soft white clouds in front of me. The street was empty. No cars, no neighbors, just the quiet hum of early morning. I remember checking the time on my little digital watch, 7:06 a.m. Still early. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, backpack straps tight in my hands, waiting, listening. That was when I heard the engine, low at first, then louder. A bus. Relief washed over me. Finally. The bus turned the corner slowly, too slowly. At the time, I did not understand why that bothered me, but my stomach tightened anyway. The bus rolled toward the curb and stopped in front of me. The doors folded open with a soft hiss. I stepped forward automatically. That was the routine. That was what you did. But then, I paused, because something was wrong. Very wrong. There were no kids inside. Not one. Every seat was empty. The aisle stretched back into the dim interior like a tunnel. My chest felt tight. The driver leaned toward the door. He smiled. Too wide. Too eager. "Well," he said gently, "hop on, we're running late." His voice sounded normal, friendly even, but my feet did not move. I just stood there, staring into that empty bus. "Where are the other kids?" I asked. The driver's smile twitched, just for a second. Then it came back. "We're picking them up next," he said quickly. "Go ahead and get on." Something cold slipped down my spine. The bus smelled wrong, even from the curb, like warm metal and something sour underneath. I shook my head slowly. "I think I'll wait." The driver's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. Not a lot, just enough for me to notice. His smile stayed in place, but his eyes stopped smiling. "Come on," he said, still calm, still soft. "We don't want you to be late for school." My heart began to beat faster, harder, because now the quiet street did not feel safe anymore. It felt empty in the wrong way. "I'm waiting for my bus," I said. The words came out smaller than I meant them to. For the first time, the driver's smile slipped completely. "This is your bus." The way he said it, it wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't friendly. It was flat, certain, final. Every instinct in my body started screaming, that loud, invisible alarm kids sometimes feel before they understand why. I took one small step backward, then another. The driver leaned closer to the open door. His voice dropped lower. Not angry, not loud, just tighter. "You should get on." The morning air suddenly felt very, very cold. And for the first time in my life, I realized something terrible. He was getting impatient. I did not move, not forward, not back. I just stood there, frozen at the edge of the curb, The bus engine rumbled softly, a low, steady vibration in the cold morning air. The driver was still watching me, still waiting. "You should get on," he repeated, softer this time, but not kinder. Something in his voice had changed, like the patience was wearing thin, one thread at a time. My fingers tightened around my backpack straps. I remember the plastic biting into my palms. I remember my heart beating too fast. But more than anything, I remember the feeling, that quiet, crawling certainty deep in my chest. Something was wrong, very wrong. "I think I'll wait for the next one," I said. My voice sounded small, even to me. For a long moment, the driver did not respond. He just stared, unblinking, measuring. Then slowly, very slowly, he leaned back in his seat. The bus creaked softly with the movement. For a second, I thought it was over, that he would just drive away, that everything would go back to normal. But instead, he reached toward the door controls. The folding doors stayed open, wide, patient, waiting, just like he was. "You're going to make yourself late," he said, still calm, still controlled. But now there was something underneath the words, something tight, something pressed thin like frustration barely being held back. The street behind me was still empty. No cars, no neighbors, no real bus. Just me and him and that quiet yellow bus. I took another step backward. My heel scraped lightly against the pavement. The sound seemed very loud, too loud. The driver's eyes flicked downward, tracking the movement, then back to my face. That was when he smiled again. But this time, it wasn't warm, it wasn't friendly. It was slow, careful, and completely wrong. "We don't have time for this," he said quietly. The words were gentle, but the tone was not. My stomach dropped, hard. For the first time, his hand left the steering wheel. It moved slowly, deliberately, down toward his side, where I could not see. Every alarm bell in my body went off at once. Loud, violent, unmistakable. I took 2 quick steps back. "I'm waiting for my bus," I said again, firmer this time, even though my voice trembled. The driver stopped moving. His hand froze halfway out of sight. His eyes locked onto mine. For 3 long seconds, neither of us moved. The engine hummed. My heart pounded. The cold air pressed against my skin. Then, he shrugged. Just shrugged. Like the whole thing suddenly didn't matter. Like I had disappointed him. "Suit yourself," he said, flat, emotionless. The bus doors folded shut with a soft hiss. The sound made me flinch. The engine growled louder. The bus began to roll forward. It passed me slowly, too slowly. As it did, I saw the driver turn his head, just slightly, still watching me, through the glass. And then the bus turned the corner and disappeared, just like that. Gone. I stood there for a long time, breathing too fast, hands shaking just a little, trying to convince myself that I had overreacted, that it was nothing, that it was just weird, not dangerous, not wrong. 5 minutes later, the real bus arrived. Loud, noisy, packed with kids, just like always. The driver opened the door and smiled normally. "Good morning," she said. Normal voice, normal eyes, normal everything. I climbed on, sat down, and tried very hard not to think about the empty bus, or the man who had been driving it, or the way he had said, "We don't have time for this." I didn't tell my parents that morning. I didn't tell anyone at school, not yet, because part of me still believed it had just been a mistake. I would find out that night how wrong I was. All day, something felt off. Not loud, not obvious, just wrong. Like when you walk into a room and forget why you went there. That quiet, nagging feeling that something isn't where it should be. I tried to focus in class, tried to listen, tried to pretend everything was normal, But every time the classroom door opened, my head snapped up. Every time a car passed outside, my stomach tightened. By the time the final bell rang, I was exhausted, the kind of tired that sits behind your eyes, heavy, foggy, uncomfortable. The bus ride home was normal, too normal. Kids yelling, seats squeaking, someone throwing paper balls across the aisle. The noise should have relaxed me, but it didn't, because I kept thinking about the empty bus and the man behind the wheel. When I got home, Mom was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. The smell of tomato sauce filled the house, warm, familiar, safe. For the first time all day, I started to relax. "How was school?" she asked. Normal question, normal voice. I hesitated, just for a second. Then I said the easiest thing in the world. "Fine." Because how do you explain something like that? How do you say, a bus came that wasn't supposed to exist, and the driver didn't feel right, and something in my stomach told me not to move? You don't, especially when you're 9. Dinner passed quietly. Homework came and went. The house settled into its usual evening rhythm. By 9 o'clock, I was in bed, lights off, door cracked open just a little, the way I liked it. At first, sleep came easily, soft, slow, peaceful. But sometime deep in the night, I woke up. No reason, no sound, just suddenly wide awake. The room was dark. The hallway light glowed faintly through the crack in my door. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. I lay there very still, listening, waiting. My heart was already beating faster, like my body knew something before my mind did. That was when I heard it, faint, distant, from somewhere in the house. The phone was ringing. Not my parents' bedroom phone, not the kitchen phone. This sound was closer, much closer. My chest tightened, because there was only one phone that close to my room. The hallway phone, right outside my door. Ring, ring, ring. Slow, even, patient, like whoever was calling knew exactly what they were doing. I sat up slowly in bed. The blanket slid softly into my lap. The ringing continued, steady, unhurried, waiting. "Mom?" I called quietly. No answer. The ringing continued, louder now, or maybe just closer. My feet touched the floor, cold wood under my toes. I stood, slowly, carefully. The ringing kept continuing. Step by step, I moved toward the door. Each movement felt too loud, too sharp, like the house was listening. I reached the door and pushed it open slightly. The hallway was empty, dim, quiet, except for the phone, still ringing, still waiting. I don't know why I did it. I should have gone back to bed, should have called for my parents, should have done anything else. But instead, I stepped into the hallway and walked toward the phone. By the time I reached it, the ringing stopped, mid-step, mid-breath, just silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the phone clicked, by itself, like someone had just picked up on the other end. A soft sound came through the receiver, wet, slow, breathing. And then, a familiar voice whispered, "You should have gotten on the bus." My blood turned to ice. I did not scream. I couldn't. My throat had closed so tight, no sound would come out. The phone trembled in my hand. On the other end, that slow breathing continued, calm, patient, waiting. My fingers slipped. The receiver hit the wall with a sharp plastic crack. The line went dead instantly. Silence rushed back into the hallway, heavy, pressing, unnatural. I stood there for a long time, bare feet on the cold floor, heart hammering too fast, trying to breathe normally again, trying to convince myself I had imagined it. But deep down, I already knew I hadn't. I don't remember walking back to my room. I don't remember climbing into bed. I only remember lying there, eyes wide open, watching the thin line of hallway light under my door, waiting for it to move, waiting for footsteps, waiting for something, anything. Morning came slowly, too slowly. When my alarm finally beeped, the sound made me jump so hard my chest hurt. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then it all came back. The bus, the call, the voice. I stayed in bed longer than usual, listening. The house sounded normal. Mom moving in the kitchen, cabinets opening and closing, the familiar morning routine. Safe sounds, normal sounds. But something inside me still felt tight, pulled thin, like a string about to snap. At breakfast, Mom noticed. She always noticed. "You look tired," she said gently. I pushed my cereal around the bowl. Just didn't sleep good. Not a lie. Not really. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Try to get to bed earlier tonight." Normal advice, normal morning, normal everything, except for the cold knot still sitting in my stomach. 7:05 a.m. I stood at the end of the driveway again, backpack on, cold air in my lungs, waiting. Every sound made me tense. Every distant engine made my heart jump. I kept telling myself, it won't come back. It was a mistake. It was nothing. It was nothing. It was nothing. 7:09 a.m. An engine turned the corner. My stomach dropped instantly. Too early. The bus rolled slowly into view, yellow, quiet, moving just a little too carefully. And then it stopped in front of me. The doors folded open with that same soft, patient hiss. The bus was empty again. The driver leaned toward the doorway and smiled, wide, familiar, wrong. "Morning," he said softly. "We don't have time to be late today." My feet moved backward on their own, one step, then another. My heart was beating so loud I could barely hear anything else. Behind the driver, deep in the empty aisle, something shifted in the shadows, just slightly, like someone or something had leaned forward. The driver's smile widened just a little more. "Go ahead," he said gently. "Everyone's already waiting." My blood ran cold, because I knew, I absolutely knew, the bus was not empty anymore. I could not move. My body wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to turn, to bolt, to get as far away from that bus as possible. But my feet felt glued to the pavement. Heavy, slow, wrong. The driver watched me carefully, still smiling, still patient, like he knew exactly what I was seeing, or maybe what I was about to see. Behind him, deep in the aisle, something shifted again. Just a small movement, but enough to make my stomach drop straight through the ground. At first, I thought it was just shadows, morning light playing tricks, my eyes adjusting, something normal, something explainable. But then, one of the shapes moved, slowly, deliberately, like someone sitting up straight. My breath caught in my throat, because now I could see them. Children, sitting perfectly still in the bus seats, row after row, too quiet, too straight, too wrong. Their heads were tilted forward slightly, not looking out the windows, not talking, not moving, just sitting, waiting. The driver's voice came softly through the open door. "See," he said, "they're all here." My heart slammed painfully against my ribs because something about the kids was not right. Even from the curb, even in the dim morning light, I could tell. They weren't blinking, not one of them, not a single movement, just rows of small, silent shapes facing forward. "I think I'll wait," I whispered. My voice shook, badly. For the first time, the driver's smile twitched. "We don't have time for waiting," he said. Still gentle, still calm, but now there was something sharp underneath. Behind him, one of the children's heads turned, slow, mechanical, too smooth. It turned and turned and turned until it was facing me. My blood turned to ice because the face looking at me was completely still, eyes wide open, unblinking, mouth slightly parted, like a doll that had been posed. The child smiled, but the eyes did not change. Something inside me finally broke. I took a full step backward, then another. The driver leaned closer to the door, his voice dropped lower, tighter. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." The bus engine rumbled louder, deeper, like it was getting impatient too. And then, from somewhere inside the bus, very softly, very faintly, one of the children whispered, "Please get on." My heart stopped because the voice did not sound like a child at all. Behind the first one, another head turned, then another, then another. One by one, row by row, every face in the bus slowly turned toward me, all smiling, all unblinking, all waiting. That was the moment I ran. I dropped my backpack, turned, and sprinted toward the house as fast as my legs could carry me. The cold air burned in my lungs. My shoes slapped wildly against the pavement. Behind me, the bus engine roared louder. For one terrible second, I thought I heard the doors open again, thought I heard footsteps, thought I heard something moving fast behind me. But I didn't look back. I didn't dare. I hit the front door hard enough to rattle the frame, burst inside, and slammed it shut behind me. Lock, chain, deadbolt. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries. I stood there in the quiet house, gasping for air, heart racing, waiting. Slowly, very slowly, I crept toward the front window and looked outside. The street was empty. No bus, no driver, no children, nothing. Just the quiet morning road, like nothing had ever been there at all. From the kitchen behind me, the house phone began to ring. The phone rang once, sharp, loud, too loud for the quiet house. I stood frozen in the hallway, chest still heaving from the run, heart slamming hard enough to hurt. The phone rang again. Mom was still in the kitchen, humming softly, like nothing was wrong, like nothing had happened outside, like there had never been a bus at all. "Can you grab that?" she called casually. My stomach dropped, cold and heavy, because the phone was only a few steps away. Ring, ring, ring. Slow, patient, familiar. My feet moved before I could stop them. One careful step, then another. The kitchen smelled like toast and coffee. Normal, warm, safe. But the sound of the ringing cut through all of it. I reached the counter, stared at the phone. It stared back, silent between rings, waiting. "Hello?" Mom called again. I swallowed hard and slowly, very slowly, picked up the receiver. "Hello?" I whispered. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, breathing. Slow, wet, too close. Every muscle in my body locked. My fingers tightened painfully around the phone cord. I didn't want to speak, didn't want to breathe, didn't want it to know I was there. But it already did. The voice came softly, gravel rough, patient. "You ran." My knees nearly gave out. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too tight, like the walls had moved closer while I wasn't looking. My voice cracked. I tried again. I don't know what you mean." Weak, too weak. A soft sound came through the line. Not quite a laugh, not quite breathing. Something in between. "You always know," the voice whispered. Behind me, Mom moved at the stove, completely unaware, completely calm. The normal sounds of morning continued, and somehow that made it worse. My voice dropped to almost nothing. "What do you want?" The line went quiet for a long time, so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, very softly, "You missed the bus." My heart slammed painfully. "I wasn't supposed to be on it," I said quickly, too quickly. The voice inhaled slowly through clenched teeth, like it was thinking. Then, "You will be." The words hit like ice water, cold, certain, final. Before I could speak again, the line went dead. I stood there in the kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, breathing too fast, hands shaking just enough to notice. "Who was it?" Mom asked casually. I slowly lowered the receiver. My voice came out thin, small. "Wrong number. Outside." Very faintly, from somewhere down the street, I thought I heard the soft hiss of bus doors opening. I did not go back outside that morning. I told Mom I felt sick, which technically was not a lie. My stomach was twisted into tight, painful knots. My hands would not stop trembling. And somewhere deep in my chest, something cold had settled in and refused to leave. Mom let me stay home. She always did when I looked pale enough. By 8 a.m., the house was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears. The kind that makes every tiny sound feel too loud. I sat on the living room couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing, trying very hard not to think about the bus, or the children, or the voice. Around 9:13, the mail arrived. I heard it slide through the slot in the front door, a soft paper whisper against the floor. Normal, routine, safe. I should have ignored it. I should have stayed exactly where I was, but something pulled at me. That same quiet, terrible curiosity, the kind that always comes right before something goes wrong. I stood slowly, walked to the door, and picked up the mail. Bills, advertisements, junk, normal things, until I saw the envelope at the bottom of the stack. No stamp, no return address, just my name, printed neatly across the front. My full name. The air in the hallway suddenly felt much colder. My fingers hesitated on the edge of the envelope. For a long moment, I just stared at it, listening to my own heartbeat. Then, slowly, very slowly, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once, carefully, deliberately. I unfolded it with shaking hands and felt the blood drain from my face. It was a list, typed, clean, organized. Names, dozens of them, stacked one under another, in perfect order. At the very top, highlighted in dark gray, was mine. My stomach dropped, hard, cold, weightless. Because next to my name, in small, neat letters, were 2 words: missed, today. Below mine, other names were marked differently. Some said collected, others scheduled, and one, farther down the page, made my hands start shaking uncontrollably. Because next to it, in darker ink, were the words, last stop. From somewhere outside, very faint, very distant, I heard the low rumble of a bus engine, idling, waiting. I never waited for the bus alone again. Not once, not ever. But sometimes, very early in the morning, just before sunrise, I still see it, slowly turning the corner, doors folding open, patient, certain, waiting for the day I finally run out of time.